Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with me. I have Eric Termuende, Now Innovations. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here this morning.
Glad you're here. All right, you are a best-selling author, an international speaker. You're on a mission to change the way we talk about work and how we get fulfillment from it. Tell me about that.
I mean, I'm seeing it all too often now. People are dragging their feet to work on Monday. We post on Wednesday that we're at hump day, we're halfway there, and, leap and skip out of the office on Friday afternoon. We're working for the weekends. I see that engagement hasn't changed in the last decade, and the connotation around work is that it's something that we have to do, not something that we get to do. And if the average American is now working 47 hours a week, it means we're working more now than we're really doing anything else in the day. And I believe that it's not just about the ping pong table with dust on it, or the beer keg that hasn't been tapped, or the open office concept, or the dogs that are running around that's going to attract and retain the best people. It's going to be that experience that they have while they're there. And I think if we can proactively talk about culture rather than reactively discuss it, I think we've got a huge opportunity to change the connotation associated with work.
I agree with you 100%, and I think a lot of CEOs are going to agree with you too. All right, the evolution of connection and need for belonging. This is a big, big issue with millennials.
With everyone, really.
But I see more of this coming to the front because millennials are more open to sharing what's really going on with them than the older generation. But I agree with you. You're right, with everyone. Go ahead, please talk to me about that.
I mean, I'm looking at this evolution of technology and how it enables us to do things that we couldn't have done in the past. I mean, for example, this conversation, we would have never been able to have a Skype conversation even 10, 15 years ago. And as a result, yeah, we're absolutely connected. Yet when I look at the daily use of this technology, I see on average we're checking our phones 85 times a day. We're spending 3.5 hours a day on our phones and 10 hours a day in front of a screen. A fascinating study that just came out a week ago said that we're living 31.5-hour days, which absolutely blew my mind. If we've only got 24 hours in the day, the average American is sleeping for 7 of them. We've got 17 waking hours. Now, if we've got 31.5-hour days, that means we're multitasking for 7.5 hours. Meaning, for 42% of our days, we're doing 2 things at once. And I think you and I can agree that when we're doing 2 things at once, we're not doing anything all that well. Now, when we talk about psychological safety, we talk about belonging, the way that I see this progression in the workplace is that we used to talk about employee satisfaction. That was sort of square one. We then talked about employee engagement. And I think what we realized is that satisfaction, engagement aren't what you fix. They're the result or the byproduct of what you fix. And if we can ensure that people feel psychologically safe, meaning they can bring their full selves to the workplace without fear of loss of reputation or status or friendships as a result of taking a risk or trying something new, and they can be the best they can be because they want to be and not feel like they're under that microscope, that's when I think we can start to proactively create and maintain great places to work.
I agree with you. What about skills of the future?
Soft is the bottom line. Even when we look at Yuval's book, 20 Lessons for the 20th Century, the Evolution of Sapiens and Homo Deus, a lot of these skills, when I'm doing my research with the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs Report, with the Royal Bank of Canada, Bring Your Human Back to Work, even in my province here in British Columbia, about the 10-year market outlook. We're seeing skills like active listening, problem solving, creative thinking. We're talking about speaking, time management. We're talking about perceptiveness. And what I think is fascinating about this is that they're very difficult to train, especially in this distraction economy that we're talking about with this technology and cell phones and computers. And so, when I look at this skills of the future, I think it starts with the most underrated job on the planet, which I think is being a parent, and not necessarily giving our children iPads to grow up with, but to, have them fight with each other and learn through conflict and make our phone calls of whether it be a dentist or a restaurant or a flight, like have our kids enter these difficult conversations. Because when you and I were looking to go on a date when we were 15 or 14 or 13, what do we have to do? We said, hey, Mrs. or Mr. Jones, can I speak to your daughter? And how scary was that? Right. When we can go through those tough and difficult situations, when we can call for a restaurant appointment and realize they don't have our time slot open and we have to go for a different time, and we work through this conflict, The skills of the future are really going to be, how do we deal with change? How do we deal with things that are uncomfortable? How do we deal with things that are uncertain to the best of our ability? And I think that as a result, these soft skills are going to be the most important that we need moving forward.
I got it. Now, the new approach to talent attraction and retention, that's something that I really want to key in on.
Yeah, love it. You want me to just go to start?
Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I see it is that it doesn't matter what industry, sector, size, profit status you're in right now. We all deal with that 1 to 2 page job description. Now, the way that I see it is the job description isn't a description of the job at all, really. It's a skills and requirements checklist. Do you have this education, these requirements? Do you have these skills, et cetera, et cetera? And I think we can all agree that if you're applying for the job, typically you've got the skills. Now, if we're talking about an accountant, for an example, in North America, there are 1.6 million accountants. You can be an accountant at a golf course, for the city, for Deloitte, for PwC, for a small boutique firm, or anywhere in between. Now, you've got your designation, you're highly educated, you're a very smart individual that does a very similar job from place to place to place. Yet, the life that you live as a result of the job is vastly different from being an accountant at a golf course to an accountant that works at Deloitte, for example. And so what I think we need to be doing is to not just talk about the perks of the job, but to talk about the experience that while we're there. You know, do you have 120 emails a day, or do you get 12? Are you in a meeting for 5 hours a day, or are you in a meeting for one? Do you work flexibly or remote, or do you work with a team? And I think the more proactive we can be and the more articulate we can be, the more we can embrace what's polarizing about our jobs and our positions and our environments at work, then what's going to happen is we're not going to attract everyone. But I think that's the best possible outcome. When we try and be everything to everyone, we ultimately become nothing to anyone. And so my biggest advice for companies is don't blow it before day one. Don't bring on the wrong person simply because they check off all the boxes. They value integrity, honor, respect, just like you've got in your boardroom because of what you value. There's nobody who's not going to value those things. Let's start differentiating based on the experience that people are going to have when they get there, and know, too, that the things that we aren't as an organization, the things that don't make us Google or Facebook or our next competitor, are ultimately what are going to be our competitive advantage. They're going to be our differentiator. And so we're not trying to attract millennials or females or males necessarily. We're trying to attract someone who wants the experience that we've got here for our people. That might only be 2% of the population, but you're not looking for 2% of the population. You're looking to fill one position at a time. And if we can do that and hone in on that exact experience, we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, we talk about what we're working through as an organization, then what I think happens is we start managing those expectations, because as human beings, disappointment is realized when expectations aren't met. And if all we're talking about are the perks and the benefits of the job, and we fail to articulate what that experience is going to be for the other 42 hours a week, then what do people sign up for? And I think the answer is they have no idea.
Got it. That's a good answer. All right. Evolution of technology and implications of AI. I deal with this all the time, trying to understand and bring in AI and actually use it in practice. Talk to me about that one.
I mean, there's a fascinating conversation going around that I've seen even just in the last couple of weeks around artificial intelligence and this new word that's coming around responsible artificial intelligence, like with something that we can manage or something that we can solve as a society. I mean, for example, there's a new technology that came out of Silicon Valley a couple of weeks ago that basically plays on the new Google Assistant, which is an artificial intelligence that will be able to book appointments and things for you and sit on hold while you don't want to, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, this new technology was basically announced that will eliminate call centers essentially across North America. And as a result, that's 2 million jobs that will be lost. The bigger problem, I think, with artificial intelligence is how we react to artificial intelligence coming into our positions. Now, for anyone who is human focused and dealing with empathy and curiosity and sympathy, et cetera, working on applying those soft skills, they're not all that worried about it. Now, people who are, let's just say, in retail or in transportation or in accounting are a little bit more concerned about this artificial intelligence, rightfully so. Now, what I would say to them is know that though artificial intelligence, by and large, will not replace our jobs, especially the more that we use our soft skills and our minds in working with people. That being said, those that use artificial intelligence will replace those that don't. So how do we actually integrate artificial intelligence into our lives so that we can be more human and have that artificial intelligence do the more redundant tasks that we probably didn't want to do anyways? Now, going back to that call center, though, if 2 million people are going to lose their jobs, the biggest mistake that they can make is to think that they're only call center employees. That's not the case. They've got high emotional intelligence. They've got a really good EQ. They can work through managing and resolving conflict with people who are at their worst and are generally really unhappy and come up with a positive solution on the other end. Now, what's fascinating is that the Royal Bank of Canada is now looking at the future of work and reclassifying jobs from titles to styles. So, for example, you could be a doer, a thinker, a crafter, a solver, a technician, or a facilitator. And so knowing that if you're in a call center position, you could be one of those 6 categories, and know that if that's true, there are countless different opportunities that you could transition to as a result of the skill set you developed while being a call center employee.
Yeah, there's a lot of people don't think that way. I'm glad you brought that up. Eric, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for being our guest today.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Mine too. All right, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thank you for following with us.